All right. Welcome. Let me see. J. Make. Okay. All right. We are going to get started. Welcome, everyone. Dr. Holly here. Thank you so much for your patience and kindness as we navigate the changes that Facebook decided to throw at me as we start this journey together. Okay. Let me share my screen with you. So today we're going to be talking about mindfulness, mind body medicine. What really is the beginning of my journey as an integrative medicine physician, integrative psychiatrist, really as a healer. My experience with mindfulness started when I was in college and is a big reason for why I do what I do. Okay, let's see. There it is. Okay. Just finding the right thing to share. And let's go slideshow. There we go. All right, perfect. Let's see the chat. Okay. All right, just let me know if anything doesn't come forward, but I think it's working okay. All right. Hopefully. Okay. All right. So, as I said, we're going to be talking about how we can manage stress, how we can build resilience, how we can do all this with the power of our mind and body and spirit as well. But we really do, in a lot of ways, when I talk to folks about why I do what I do and how partnering with me works, I often feel like Glenda the Good Witch in the Wizard of Oz story, kind of watching Dorothy kind of mess things up and like fumble around and then being like, dude, you have the shoes on the whole time. So to me, mind body medicine, mindfulness, the power of the mind is the ruby slipper that we all are wearing. And we sometimes forget about. Sometimes we're like too busy, like singing on the Yellow Brick Road or like, talking to lions that talk and things like that. Okay. So I have nothing to disclose because other than just loving this stuff, I don't, other than my own spirit being invested in it, no other investments. So today we're going to talk about stress, relaxation, like what stress does to our body, what that looks like in real time, and then what mindfulness is, because people have kind of preconceived notions as far as thinking it's like Buddha on the mountaintop all the time. Like that's an element of it, but not necessarily all it is. Talking about the evidence of why that's so important for us, and then also exploring different types of mindfulness. We may touch on flow state, although I might be saving that for tomorrow. We'll see how much time we have. All right, so as always, I love to start things with a little bit of breathing. So I have my handy dandy $9 from Amazon. Not that I'm an Amazon spokesman, but in case you're looking for an easy bell. So I'm just gonna tune us in a little bit. So just breathing in through your nose and exhaling. Let's do that one more time. Breathing in and exhale. Oops, one more lanyap time. Breathing in and exhale. When you're ready, if you had your eyes closed, you can open them and we can join back together, just centering ourselves. I always feel like that's a nice moment that we can take for ourselves together, just to remind ourselves that we're here in this space together and not like wherever our mind might be taking us, which we'll get into. Okay, so there's no quiz on this, I promise. This is just a visual, so you can maybe get a like when we talk about fight or flight, relaxation, like get kind of an idea of it. So the fight or flight is the sympathetic nervous system. You might hear these terms sometimes thrown around by doctors or in media or what have you. The fight or flight, the sympathetic nervous system is what happens when we are needing to be kind of prepared to act on things. Like if we are going to give a talk and our Zoom doesn't want to work, or we're going to do whatever, we're going to have a conversation with our doctor and we're not, really in a relaxed state about it. So our body literally prepares as if it needs to kind of fight and do the thing. So eyes are dilating so you can see more. Anything that has to do with GI system, with digestion, is suppressed. So that's why a lot of times when we're in this kind of fight or flight, we have like irritable bowel and reflux and things like that. All those things are kind of decreased. Our heart rate goes up to give us more blood to our muscles so we can run or fight or do the thing. And with that, our breathing increases. Also, any kind of like sexual health is like in the dumper, because when you're kind of in that fight or flight space, like sex and digesting are just not on the forefront. The opposite of that is the parasympathetic. That's on the left of your screen. That's the relax, the rest and digest you might hear. And that is basically the opposite. Like your pupils constrict more, your body's just focusing on like getting the fuel digested into the cells as needed, kind of in a regular resting state. It's also where the body really can focus on getting rid of toxins and cleaning up. I kind of visualize it as restocking the shelves, late night in a Target, as my kids and I call it, or Walmart. So it's that late night kind of space of just restocking and getting things back online. And obviously that's also where like sexual organs, GI system, our gut health is more online. So the stress response, what does that mean? That means basically the brain sees that there's a stressor. Again, it can be as simple as I have to give a talk and I'm not prepared, or my daughter this morning, I love to share a personal story. She hates it. Came and told me, as I shared during our morning ritual, my brain is not 100% right now. I literally just got my thyroid medicine for the first time between these sessions. And I've told my daughter, who's also on thyroid medicine, Maeve, I am not fully online. Well, she came to me this morning, Mommy, you forgot to study science with me. I have a test today. So she went into full on panic. She tends to have anxiety around grades and things like that. So any kind of, like, I printed out her study guide, we were trying to review it. All of that was like completely offline for her because she goes into an anxiety space. So the brain basically, oops, I have a test that I forgot about. It's like everyone's like nightmare is like the test at school you forgot to study for, or that you're like naked somewhere. I don't know what like the two have in common. But anyway, brain tells adrenal gland, that's the gland that's on top of our kidneys. Again, no test in this. This is just so you can understand it if you're talking to your medical team, that, hey, there's a stressor, like I'm not ready for this test, or someone is cutting me off in traffic, or I feel in danger. And the adrenal glands are the place that makes the stress hormones. We hear a lot about cortisol. Cortisol drives the stress response. It's also what keeps us, like, wakes us up in the morning. So cortisol is not all bad. It gets a bad rap because of this stress response, but it's not like something you don't want to have at all, or else you would not be able to wake up. But what cortisol does is it increases the sugar in our blood. That is basically to give our muscles and really our muscles the energy that they need to respond, to run if you're in danger, to fight if you need to, or to just do the thing that you're needing to do, whether it be study or figure out Zoom, whatever. It also, glutamine is the storage of sugar in your muscles. So it breaks down that storage in your muscles and kind of frees it up into the blood. It also, with time, will increase fat in your body. I'll talk more about that with the chronic stress. And then it takes calcium from your bones because your muscles use calcium to constrict. It's just the mineral that it needs to make the contraction of muscles. And your bones are a great storage space for that. Unfortunately, it's also what keeps your bones strong. So, you can see where this is going with chronic stress. The adrenal then in a normal stress response, again, I live in New Orleans, so normal is always in parentheses for me. The normal stress response, the adrenals will tell the body like, hey, we're good. We took care of it. We studied for that test. We're going to rock it, or, or crammed. We figured out how to do this. We figured out how we're going to get things to our group and keep everyone together as a community. Or, I ran away from that dude and he turned out he was just like getting the mail, whatever it is. And then the body will also, tell the brain like, hey, we're good. Well, the adrenal tells the body to do all the things, and then the body tells the brain, we're good. So sorry for that little anyway. So then with chronic stress, a good thing kind of goes into overdrive. So what does that mean? That means the body thinks, lower brain, I kind of treat it as if it's a toddler. It's very simple. It's very behavioral. So if it thinks there's still a stressor happening, it's going to behave as if you can't get to a food source, because really lower brain is just about survival. It's just about eating, sleeping, sex if you're lucky, like just lower brain stuff. So it's going to act as if you can't get to a food source because you're in danger. So what does that mean? It means it decreases your thyroid function. So shocker, I just had a large amount of stress because I'm a theater mom. My kids just had their show. I was all in. And then lo and behold, my thyroid goes offline. So, I mean, I also have other stressors. I also am very predisposed genetically, but like my daughter has hypothyroid, Hashimoto's. Her thyroid went offline during the pandemic. This is like, oftentimes if you look back at, when I first started having chronic like joint pain. I had other symptoms of my Ehlers-Danlos and my connective tissue stuff, but I first had joint pain when I was starting medical school, and I was like 6 months in, and I woke up one day literally in complete pain. So there's often, again, not that it's the only cause, but there's often a stressor that will kind of drive things in a negative direction because the body goes into this chronic stress state. So, with that, it reduces antibodies. So we're chronically stressed. We get exposed to COVID. Next thing you know, it's chronic COVID. Like there's always other factors. Again, this is not to like say like, oh, I was too stressed out, so I created this for myself. There's always genetics. There's always environment. These all things play together, but we're looking at like, what's the red ruby slipper? What can we control? And then, of course, gut immunity. We talk a lot about in integrative psychiatry and also just in the integrative world, the gut brain axis, and how the brain and gut are really more connected than maybe we first realized. A number of neurotransmitters are made in the gut, melatonin, there's more melatonin receptors in the gut than the brain. So there's a lot of overlap in what's happening. So if the gut is not online and not working well and doing all the things and feeling healthy, then we're going to be more prone to this chronic stress state and things kind of not going well for us. So basically that means, blood sugar going up, staying up, the fat increases. As I mentioned, it kind of starts increasing with initial stress, but if chronic stress happens, the body thinks it's not getting to a food source. So what does it do? It stores fat around our middle. So that middle fat is what tends to lower sex hormones. It actually literally converts testosterone to estrogen. So testosterone is often what gives us our sex drive, men and women. We both have testosterone. So any testosterone we have, even if we're taking it, is going to be converted to estrogen by that belly fat. The belly fat, again, it's just our body's way of thinking. It's providing by storing energy for us to use, thinking we can't get to a food source. But when the stress is meetings and life and not, I can't get to a food source, we're still eating, you can kind of see where this goes into a not so great direction. So there's a balance. The cortisol, as I said, is primarily a stress hormone. It increases that rescue mode. It works with adrenaline. It works against inflammation. For those of us who have chronic conditions, which is, I'm thinking most everyone on this call, it's not unheard of for your doctor to maybe give you a steroid if your asthma is inflamed, if your joints are inflamed, if inflammation is working against you. Steroids are often used to decrease that inflammation. Well, cortisol is a steroid within the body that does the same thing. But that's not always for our benefit. Because sometimes, like I said, you, like your mom and them used to tell you, if you keep stressing yourself out, you're going to get sick. That's literally true. That's like the old wives' tales are often based in science, whether they knew it or not. So it decreases your immune system, and it tells other hormones to kind of be less online. The opposite of cortisol is the DHEA. That's kind of the precursor to sex hormones. It's kind of the anti-stress, the anti-aging. A lot of folks who are kind of in that anti-aging realm will talk a lot about DHEA. Again, it's a balance. So like taking one or suppressing one isn't going to necessarily do all the things, because your body always wants a homeostasis. So it's going to respond to whatever you're doing to it. But this is kind of where things are going. Kind of with the sex hormones, because I know this comes up a lot for folks when they come to see me and they're worried about like testosterone levels and hormone levels. Cortisol and DHEA, I don't know if you can see my pointer, are made from the same molecule. So they're both made from cholesterol molecule. So if you're making more of the stress hormone because you're in a chronic stress state, you have less of the building blocks to make your sex hormones. So that's why when someone comes and their sex hormones are out of whack, and you don't have like a biologic cause, or you do, but it's amplified, the first thing we do is talk about mind-body medicine. It's not good medicine to just replace testosterone without doing this first, because you're not addressing the root cause. And I will. That is a hill I will happily perch on. Okay, so I'm not going to get too deep into this, but this is just to show you that how the stress pattern kind of goes. Like initially, that initial stress response can be super high at first and then goes down. Like I have to deal with a test, I deal with it, stress hormone goes down. If you're in a chronic stress state, like my teacher hates me, my boss is like treating me like crap, then cortisol is high, DHEA, that anti-aging, anti-stress hormone is low. And that's when you start getting into like the anxiety, the mood swings. And then with time, so you're more in like an anxious kind of uppity space. With time, that kind of poops out, and it's not that the cortisol isn't being made, it's more that your body isn't seeing it. And so you are in that depressive, like, I just don't even have anything to respond to. Like people talk about just like complete apathy, complete lack of energy. And that's kind of the space that you're in. Okay. And all right. Okay, so as far as the, I'm just making sure my thing's in. Yes, it is. Okay. So chronic stress, basically I kind of alluded to some of this, but just to kind of put it in a way that's kind of more obvious. So with chronic stress, fat is built around the middle, sugar is elevated, thyroid function kind of goes offline, muscle is used up to feed build more sugar. You're kind of taking storage out of the muscle. You're also taking calcium out of bone, and immune system is decreased. So all these things are kind of the root causes for what we end up seeing on the other side, which is gaining weight, having what we call metabolic syndrome, where our blood pressure goes up, our cholesterol goes up. With that, diabetes is more likely to occur. So type 2 diabetes is often seen with chronic stress. Unfortunately, chronic stress also makes you crave sugar. So that just adds to the preemptive diabetic picture. And then, of course, that loss of muscle can lead to more likely having injury. You don't have, for someone like me who's hypermobile, you really need that muscle strength to keep your joints in alignment and not have subluxation or injury. The same can be said for women trying to not have osteoporosis. Like if you're not having that built up muscle or built up bone, those things are more likely to go in a negative direction. So, stress plays a part in all of these things. So what do we do? Mindfulness, as I have touched on several times today, is the ruby slipper. It's where we can go to get ourselves to a better state. So what is mindfulness? As I mentioned to you guys, I was blessed to meet Jon Kabat-Zinn and see him live and in person over the weekend. He is one that he's an MIT scientist that met Zen masters early in his career. He and Andy Weil, who's one of my mentors for my fellowship, met early on in their careers. They were kind of brought together by a medical director who happened to be a psychologist. And so really believed in kind of bringing whole body care together, which is what was unheard of. Like this was in the 70s. And he defines it as paying attention on purpose in the present moment, non-judgmentally. So basically, he's like, dude, it's just knowing what you're doing when you're doing it, like just being present to what you're doing at that moment. The non-judgmental is where we really have a hard time as humans. Our brains are built to be judgmental, to create judgments to keep us safe. Like, oh, that's a hot stove. I am not going to touch it. That is unsafe. But unfortunately, the judgments can sometimes get in our own ways. So when we're trying, people in the group, as we were talking about, are you thinking of, are you in the moment, or are you thinking about your grocery list or the hamburger you're going to have? Folks were sharing, like, I don't do it right. I'm not sure, like, how to do this. And really, there's no right way to do it. It's training your brain as if you're training a muscle. So you're deciding to focus on breathing or this piece of music or whatever you happen to see in the environment. And when your brain wanders, as it will, non-judgmentally, meaning not judging yourself, not giving yourself shame, bringing the brain back to what you decided to focus on. And this can happen for 30 seconds. This can happen for 2 minutes. This can happen for 20 minutes. If you're, one of a Zen master, it can be happening for days at a time. It's really just meeting yourself where you're at. And some days are going to be better than others. So let's give this a try. We're going to try a very simple exercise that I think I've shared this with people as you guys join the group. It's a favorite of mine because, well, I learned it from Andy, but also because I just think it's really accessible. Okay, so if we sit together and I invite you, if you're comfortable, to close your eyes, if not, to just hold a soft gaze and put your, sit with an awake spine or with your feet, your back supported, if laying down or sitting in a chair without an awake spine is more in alignment with your body right now, whatever feels okay for you and where you are at this moment. Again, if you're comfortable closing your eyes, and we're going to just breathe together. We're going to try this 4-7-8 breathing. This is inhaling through your mouth, through your nose, exhaling through your mouth, and making a whoosh sound as you exhale. If you want to get like extra and be more like a yogi, you can try to put the tongue at the roof of your mouth behind your teeth. That creates a circle, a circuit that, is kind of more in like alignment with yogis and like keeping your energy within. And trying to inhale quietly through your nose. So we're going to inhale for a count of 4, hold for a count of 7, and exhale for a count of 8. We're going to do this for 4 cycles. I will count us through the first cycle, and then I will just try to make noise as I inhale and exhale for the next 3. If my counting or inhaling and exhaling is not in alignment with where your body is, if you have asthma, if you're pregnant, if you have COPD, if you have any issues with breathing and you need to go slower or faster, that's okay. Listen to your body, do what works for you. And again, if you're comfortable closing your eyes, I'm inviting you to do so, or just holding a soft gaze. All right, so with that, let's inhale and setting the stage. All right, and inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and inhale, hold, exhale, inhale, hold, and exhale, and inhale, hold, and exhale. And then bringing your breathing back to what's comfortable. Just noticing your body, any changes, anything that comes up for you. When you're ready, you can open your eyes or bring your focus back into the room together. So 478, that is a simple, easy way to get into relaxation or a parasympathetic response. I currently have a private practice. I had a private practice I opened a week before the pandemic hit, and then, just saw first responders for free for that first 6 months. But before opening my own practice and being able to do what I want to do, but being a boss lady, I worked for the man. I happen to work at my local VA. I love my veterans. I still see them through some grants, but at the time, the VA was not the best place to work. Not because of the vets, but because of the administration. And so I would go around and teach this technique to nurses, to doctors, to colleagues, to vets too. When I was there, it was just part of like my practice and what I did to try to, make the system healthier. And I shared with them when I would go park in the morning, they had like 1,000 places for 2,000 employees or something like ridiculous in the employee parking. So it was really like musical chairs, like you get there, you just hope for the best. You hope someone's leaving from the night shift when you arrive, or else you're driving around and being 20 minutes late and parking in the neighborhood. So I would do 478 breathing to like reset myself so I could be pleasant in the day, because this did not put me in a good state. So I just invite you to consider it as something that you use as a tool, is something you can do if you are not a morning person like me, or if you have a moment at work. It's the nice thing about it is like those red ruby slippers, it's always accessible to you. We are always breathing, and it's not something you have to announce. You can just do this and get back with your day. You have a moment, you're triggered, you have to have a difficult conversation, you're waiting for your doctor, they're running late, you want to ask them to help you with something and you're afraid they're not going to hear you. This is something you can do while you're waiting in the waiting room. It literally takes a minute. Like if you do 4 rounds, maybe 2 minutes. Well, not even, maybe 2 minutes. I don't know. I forget, but not very long. And, the 4 cycles is the ideal. With time, if you can do this daily, then you could add it twice a day. The only major side effect if you do it too much is you kind of will get that kind of runner's high. Like it does kind of have your endorphins go. So just be aware of that. So, you wouldn't want to overdo it at first until you're kind of built up some resilience to it. And then you can do it as needed. So I just invite you to consider that in your practice. So mind body medicine is basically the belief that your body, your thoughts, your spiritual beliefs all work together with healing. It's really about using behavioral techniques, psychological techniques, spiritual techniques, social community building to improve our health. As I said, it's always been a part of my practice. I started meditating when I was in college. I happened to go abroad. Again, my parents are from Ireland, so I went to Dublin where they met up with my mom's best friend's son, who happened to be studying as a Buddhist monk, went into their sanctuary and was like, dude, I need more of this. Like just the feeling of this, of the energy of the space was like, I was all in. And so I started a meditative practice. I, was kind of off and on with it as I became more mature in my adulthood. And then as I got more to this space in my life, realized that it's something that's better for me. And it can be mindfulness, it can be prayer. Prayer practice does the same thing. So when I'm talking about mindfulness, if prayer is more in alignment with your spirituality and way of being, it does the exact same thing biologically. Herbert Benson from Harvard, he's passed away now, but when I studied with him early on in my career, he studied prayer practice or chanting as to look at the relaxation response. He's a cardiologist, or was a cardiologist, who kind of developed the term and studying of the relaxation response. And the studies showed same difference. Prayer, chanting mantras, meditation, all did the same relaxation, parasympathetic, anti-stress response. So whatever is in alignment with your way of being is what works. So mindfulness-based stress reduction is it's an 8-week program that John Kabat-Zinn developed based on his practice of mindfulness and also him being a scientist. You can't just like let it happen. He's got to study it. So it's 8 weeks of diving into different types of mind-body medicine, like breathing practice, yoga, mindful walking, Tai Chi, body scan, guided imagery. These are all things that we're going to be tasting as we go along these 3 days, or at least some of them. And he studied folks doing this 8-week course, before and afters, and he found benefits that it deepens your breathing, it lowers your blood pressure. I've seen this in real time when I've done mindfulness with veterans and with my colleagues. Suddenly they don't need as much blood pressure medicine when they're doing a regular practice. Lowers your heart rate, improves your focus. It's really great for helping you stay in the moment, but also helping your focus because your brain's not stressed out. It's not all on the other things. It's on what's in front of it. So when people are stressed out, they'll come to me and worry about dementia and memory issues when it's really the stress response is keeping them from being present. So that's something to keep in mind. If you're like me and dealing with brain fog, mindfulness, getting back to this mind body is the way to go. So John Kabat-Zinn, early on in his studies, looked at folks with classic generalized anxiety or panic disorder. So these are like not just like, oh, I'm worried. This is like real time. I need benzodiazepines. I need like strong medication. I can't function, folks. And this is a classic scale, the Beck anxiety scale, looking at really high ratings of anxiety. That shaded part of where it says treatment is where the 8 weeks that they work together in this mind-body medicine, the mindfulness-based stress reduction. And then you can see how much that anxiety level decreased with just engaging in these practices. This is just like daily practice. And then what's super cool is the weeks following the formal treatment, you see the stress and the anxiety levels continue to decrease because, after 3 weeks, they say it's a habit, so doing this is what I suspect is doing this for the 8 weeks, whether it be the full enchilada mind-body medicine, what they were doing in the 8 weeks stuck around, or just pieces of it, whatever element of that stuck around with them to use as tools, help them continue to decrease their anxiety levels, which is just pretty rad. So general benefits, we know it decreases depression. We know it decreases anxiety. Again, if you're decreasing that fight or flight, that dysregulation of the body, these things naturally improve. It also improves the suffering that accompanies chronic pain. So it's not that the pain is gone, but by allowing ourselves to be aware of it in the moment, we realize pain is not static, it does change. And the suffering that we add to the pain to make it that much worse for ourselves is less present in our lives. There's been studies looking at body scans in real time when folks are in the clinic and how their perception of pain with these body scans decreases. It's really, like I said, about the added suffering. And I think also the flip side of that is that when you're lowering that stress, lowering that inflammation that happens with the stress response, the inflammatory processes that maybe are contributing to the pain, depending on like what pain we're dealing with, are lessened. So that makes sense, right? It also reduces illness-related distress, cardiovascular disease. As I said, it improves blood pressure, improves outcomes. If someone has a heart attack, one of the best treatments you can do outside of the medications and being seen by the cardiologist is engaging in a mindfulness practice. It decreases a relapse, a reoccurrence of heart attacks and heart disease, like many-fold. So definitely worth considering, definitely something that I recommend to anyone who sees me who's had a heart attack or is post-stroke or post-heart attack. Diabetes, they did a study of veterans. Veterans aren't always the most likely to do all the things because they have a lot going on. They have a lot of trauma. And they looked at veterans with diabetes. They had a group engage in traditional diabetic education with a diabetic nurse, and then another group who did that same education, and they added like a 6 to 10 minute meditation and said, hey, just do this on your own every day. They didn't guide them in anything, they just taught it to them. The ones who were taught the meditation and encouraged to engage in its hemoglobin A1C, which is the blood value that we look at when we're monitoring diabetes. It kind of tells us how well the diabetes have been controlled in the past 3 months, significantly lowered. Which makes sense, right? When you think of the stress response, sugar goes up with stress. So if you're lowering stress, the sugar in your blood lowers. So this makes sense. HIV and AIDS, viruses, I would probably put COVID in this group as well. Responses to treatment, CD4 counts improved with adding mindfulness. Irritable bowel syndrome, this is super important. A lot of us with chronic illnesses, Ehlers-Danlos, hypermobility, really, I mean, my thyroid, all the different, a lot of these chronic illnesses have gut issues associated with them, either directly or indirectly. So irritable bowel, improvement with mindfulness, specifically or highly improved in the anxiety around irritable bowel, which is what really keeps people at home, keeps people from engaging in life, is like, I'm really anxious, I'm gonna like need to go to the bathroom, or I'm not gonna need to go and have pain later. That decreases significantly with a mindfulness practice, again, or prayer practice, whatever is in alignment with you. And that allows for the freedom of engaging in life. And then the symptoms are also decreased, like the regularity improves. Transplant, post-transplant, better outcomes when you add mindfulness. Actually, adding mindfulness in any stressful situation, like we add it to chemotherapy, to post-transplant, to an MRI that can be scary. All of those things improve with having a practice. Quality of life with chronic illness. Also sleep, CBT is cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia. It's got a 95% improvement rate with insomnia. It's much better than any of the hypnotics, any of the medications we give for sleep. It's behavioral. It's learning to consolidate your sleep into the amount of time that you need while you're sleeping, not napping, not, kind of being changing sleep times. It's really, it's work, but it's really effective. If you add a mindfulness practice to that, it's like a 99% effective rate. So there's a lot to it, and that can be like your Calm apps, I'm on Insight Timer as a teacher. So like if you tune into Insight Timer, if you just listen to relaxing music, whatever kind of mindfulness practice you have that helps you engage in sleep, it's going to improve that outcome. As we already know, it reduces your stress hormones, improves your immunity, reduces inflammation, longevity. This is where I get to be a super nerd. So I was a cell bio major in college, so like, sorry. But telomeres are the proteins on your DNA. They stabilize your DNA. The length of telomere corresponds to like how long of a life you have. So like mothers of children with chronic illness, like myself, our telomere length, if we just go with the stress response associated with that, lowers as if we're losing 10 years of life. But they found the opposite is true. Those who are engaging in mindfulness practice, they looked at, Buddhist monks and folks who were doing like a real practice, their telomere length actually lengthened and their time on this earth also lengthened. So if that's something that you're like, dude, I want to live forever, here's another way to approach that. Neuroplasticity is our ability to learn new things. It's our forming new brain connections. It's when we talk about using things like psychedelics, those are helping the brain form new connections. Psychedelics is really just mindfulness in like on steroids. So it does the exact same thing. It causes the same brainwave patterns. So if you're like, oh, dude, I wish I could get psychedelics, engage in a mindfulness practice. That's the poor man version. And, the more like what you have available to you today version. So as I said, it's the way the brain reorganizes itself. It's how you learn to think about things differently. So when you engage in things like being in these sessions together, being in therapy, going to learn a new class, just learning new things. It's the new neural pathways that are made together. I will sometimes do an exercise when I'm with a group of folding paper. I have folks fold paper, and if you have paper accessible to you, you can do this right now as I'm talking, folding the paper 6 times and just folding it up, folding it again, folding it again. And once you folded it that 6 times, then and that takes some effort. I then invite you to smooth it out. And you're like, okay, well, I can't really smooth it completely. That's okay. That's not the point of the exercise. Once you've smoothed it out after folding it the 6 times, or however many times you can, if you can't make it 6, it's okay. It's not a rule. Fold it back the same number of times. Now you'll notice that's a lot quicker than the first time. And that's neuroplasticity. When you are originally making those new pathways, it takes some effort. It's not easy. There's growing pains. You're going to have, if you're really doing the work in therapy or in these kind of sessions together, you're going to have tears. You're going to have times when you're like, this sucks. You're going to have like, Dr. Holly's the worst. You're going to have those feelings come up. And when you move through through the muck, then you're able to make those connections more easily. Like later, you're able to pull from the skills that you learned here or wherever you're learning those skills and make them into your daily life. So different ways of bringing mindfulness into the world. This is my daughter. She's now 11, almost 12. This is when she was like 4, I think. This is in Dublin and one of the parks. We got a big ice cream when Daddy was off doing something. I forget what he was doing, but we were having fun. And so kids are the best at mindful eating, as you can see. Like they're all in. Especially if you take away tablets and phones if they're older and things like that. And I invite you to think about doing this. This can be something that again, like the ruby slippers, you have to eat. So this is or drink. You have to, these are things that keep you alive. So this is something you can do next meal. I invite you to, when you have that meal in front of you, you can offer a blessing to it. Those in VIP will be talking about like offering Reiki blessing, or if you have another spiritual practice blessing, just to offer some positive energy, but really just observing your food and seeing it. So like kids with ice cream, like, oh my God, that looks so good. And then smelling it. My daughter, she's actually the perfect example of this. She can't eat anything without smelling it. It's kind of a running joke in our family. She smells ice, like she'll smell anything. But smelling it and like really, kind of thinking as if you're like a wine connoisseur or whatever food connoisseur, like allowing the essence and the smells to really come to you and noticing like maybe the salivation starting in your mouth or like the feelings that start happening with that. Touching the food, like again, kids are great at this because they don't care. Like, touching the noodles, touching the ice cream, touching whatever it is you're working with. Hearing yourself as you're chewing it, as you're swallowing, if there's a crunch with the food, if there's not, and then really allowing yourself to notice the taste, each and every taste. Is there an aftertaste? Is there an anticipated taste from the smell? And then the taste itself is something else. And then a different part of the palate is activated later. Really allowing that with each bite and just eating is a mindfulness practice. It can be a spiritual practice. And it is something that's going to allow your body to enter into a rest and digest state. I sincerely invite you to try this. If you're someone who's working, doing this at lunchtime, turning off the computer, turning away from it. Maybe if you work by yourself, like me, going to a different part of your office, or if you're able to go outside, even better, or to a different space, or just somehow changing up your environment so you're just focusing on what's in front of you. It allows for that mindfulness practice in real time. You can do this as a family. Again, turning off electronics, turning off TV. Andy Weil said to us that he will invite people over to eat. And if they're chatty Cathys, he does not invite them back. He wants to just eat. And I'm like, oh. And I think that's awesome. Like you don't have to talk about all the things. You can just enjoy your food. So I invite you to consider that as a simple and accessible mindfulness practice. Another practice is mindful movement. Now, this can be a yoga. If you are hypermobile like myself, something more like a Tai Chi or Qigong might be more accessible. For me, I have to be very careful about what kind of movement practices I do because I need to make sure whomever I'm working with is aware that I'm hypermobile, because I can do all the things, and maybe not as much now because I'm older, but all the things with yoga, but it's not good for my body to do those things. The arthritic response, the subluxation, the whatever kind of issues. So whatever is in alignment with your body. If yoga is in alignment, awesome. If Tai Chi is better. Tai Chi is very pedestrian, so I like it. You can modify it for wheelchairs, for sitting, for whatever works for you. I am not a Tai Chi master, nor am I a TikTok master, but I did make this little Tai Chi video like early on during the pandemic, just to kind of be able to show people like this is just the basic form or part of it. There used to be music associated with this, but obviously TikTok with their issues took the music off. So I apologize. It's a little, I'll have to take the sound off next time I share it. But this is just the form. This is just the basic form. There's different names for these different positions. And it, when done more quickly, is a martial art. So like you could really like take care of someone if you needed to, if you were doing Tai Chi more quickly, because it's like sweep the knee, like you're sweeping away someone from hitting you. And like, you could be punching people and things like that. So it's really a warrior stance. It's very popular with my vets because it is really a warrior type practice. And there's local groups that do it. There's an amazing woman who's a physical therapist who runs groups in the park here in New Orleans. Yeah, that's something I invite you to consider and to look at as a possible mindful movement practice. If nothing else, you can just walk. I wish I had taken this photo. My sister-in-law is an amazing photographer. That's my brother on the beach. But just walking, a mindful walk is one where you are aware of your body and space. You're aware of what comes up for you, whether it be thoughts, feelings, emotions, and you're aware of the changing in weight, how the air feels on your skin, what you're seeing, what you're smelling, what you're hearing as you walk. This is something, again, you can do, if you're working for the man and having a day, stepping outside and walking for 5 minutes, or just deciding like, hey, I got to go to another part of the building, and using that walk as a mindful walk is another way to reset yourself. Or in the evenings, if you're here in New Orleans and it's too hot, and during the day, or mornings, a morning walk is always great because it helps reset your body, tell your body it's time to be awake now, because you have that sun time, which we'll talk about in a later talk. But walking is an amazing way to kind of engage with the environment, but also engage in mindfulness. So it's really, just about like being in that moment. An awe walk is a little more about the environment around you. So that might be, now that it's turning into spring, it's Balatana, it's the time of year when things are starting to kind of show themselves, more butterflies, more flowers, what have you. So this, again, sorry for the sound, is just some butterflies in Arizona, in Tucson, just a butterfly garden, just to share some outdoors with you. Okay. And then last is Reiki, is a type of mind-body practice. It's an energy form. Well, the VIPs and I will get more into this in an hour or so. It's was first developed in Japan. It uses chakra energy centers. It's really about transferring energy by either it's usually non-touch. It can be touch or non-touch, but it's about physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, energetic bodies. There's different layers of energy. And it's something that there has been evidence, studies done and evidence found that it improves mood, anxiety, improves outcomes in cancer, chronic illness, and pain. Again, it's something we bring to scary spaces to kind of help with healing and help with realignment of energy centers. The chakras, we'll get more into this afternoon, the different levels of chakra centers and where they align with the body. And yeah, like I said, we'll get into this later this afternoon. The animals in our lives also have different chakras. And so energy work can be offered to them when I'm doing group Reiki healing in person and someone has like a service dog or emotional support animal with them. I love offering Reiki to them as well. And they, often will be attracted to that if we're like in a group space and that's happening. They'll kind of come out of the woodwork all of a sudden. So that's something to look forward to this afternoon. Oh, all right. So why, outside of the physical benefits of mind body work, it also allows us, and we'll get more into this tomorrow, to be present in the moment and allows us to channel into our intuition. So the basic parts of how we respond to the world, we have like our instincts that we follow, our subconscious, what we're aware of, our conscious, what our values are, and then really when we are engaging in mindfulness, it allows us to get more into bringing the subconscious into the conscious and then allowing us to be more in tune with what our intuition is telling us. As I shared with you guys, I recently realized the like brain fog and things that I've been experiencing is due to my thyroid. I intuitively knew this. I asked my doctor after some other lab results to check for my thyroid antibodies because I just intuitively knew that this would probably be the answer, and it was. And I hear about this all the time. I just heard from another mom doc whose kiddo had a stomach bug. It looked like a stomach bug. The ED wanted to kind of blow them off and say, oh, here, take something for nausea. She's like, I really think you need to do an ultrasound. And the kid had appendicitis. So this is a big part of us listening to our bodies and a big reason to allow space for mind-body connection. Because when we're busy doing, we don't allow space for the being and for that connection between our body and mind and spirit so that we can really hear ourselves. For those who are still kind of, meh, I don't know if that's real. Interestingly enough, I love a good science. When folks are using their intuition, they did visual studies using CT scans. The part of the brain, the pineal gland, right where the third eye is, lights up. So there's something to it, where we see as the intuition center in chakras also lights up in the Western side of medicine when intuition is used. So there's definitely, that feminine intuition. It is more divine feminine, and that it's the being space and allowing space for it to be there. Tells us what the truth is if we are willing to listen. And so this is a way to allow space for that. So for practice over the next day or so, or if you're revisiting this as a VIP for when you find time, is I just invite you to find anything that you're doing in the day and bringing a mindfulness awareness to it. It can be brushing your teeth, it can be setting the table, it can be picking up the kids from school, just allowing yourself to be in that space in the moment, just doing that. Just see what that brings for you. See what that feels like. And yeah, I love this quote from the Buddha: what you think you'll become, what you feel you attract, what you imagine you create. And just allowing space for that. So I hope that serves all of you. And we're just ending just in time with 5 minutes left. I love it when that happens. And this is just ways to connect with me. Obviously, the group is one way, but if you want to reach out and connect on a deeper level, one-on-one, what have you, these are ways to do it. I have discovery calls through my website, darawellnessnola.com. That's always a good way to connect and see if there's a one-on-one situation that would be beneficial to you. I love partnering with people. I have a lot of folks with chronic things that going on that maybe they know the answer to or don't know the answer to. And part of why they're attracted to my way of practice is that I do full head to toe review of systems and head to toe recommendations with mind body work, supplements, which we'll talk about more in a few days, and other ways of being that will not only help your anxiety or stress, but also help your diabetes or also help your heart condition or your thyroid issues or your Ehlers-Danlos, like whatever it may be. Part of why I did the study and I did and do the practice I do is because I myself have more than just one thing happening to me at any given time. And I think the whole vessel needs to be addressed for healing to really happen. So I just invite you to consider that if that's in alignment with you. And I appreciate everyone tuning in and I love you and adore you. And again, VIPs, I'll see you at 1 o'clock Central Standard Time. And if that sounds enticing to you, you want to know more about Reiki, want to know more about all the things, or just have access to this later, please join us in VIP. I would love to have you. And, the more the merrier because it's super fun. And we're going to be doing a lot of like fun things that are going to help us move forward in ways that'll allow healing. So thank you guys so much. I adore you. And I'm going to sign off, hopefully. Let's see. Stop my share. And I'll see you guys later. Love you.